Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So audio visual are good. Welcome, everyone, to the next in a series of webinars that we're doing at Dream Exchange. The title of this is How Stock Exchanges Make Money. A bit more of a technical webinar that is not our customary, usual explanation of capital markets. There's a lot of material that I want to get through. Actually, I should introduce myself. I'm Joe Cecala, the founder and the CEO of the Dream Exchange. My partner, Dwayne Kyles, is not here with us today, but you will be hearing from him shortly because we're going to show you a short video. In fact, I'm going to start the video presentation usually while people are still filing into the room. So you can hear a little bit about the purposes of Dream Exchange and how we got started and where we came from. So let me start with Dwayne, letting you know who we are and what we're doing.
I'm Dwayne Kyles. I am the managing member of DX Capital Partners. We're shooting this at the National Civil Rights Museum, and I wanted to do it here, this place of healing. My dad was one of the pastors who encouraged Dr. King to come here to get involved in the sanitation workers strike. I was there when he made the mountaintop speech. It had a profound effect on me. 20 years ago, the average IPO was valued at about $61 million. Today, the average IPO comes in at a staggering $180 million. That has left a lot of companies owned by all kinds of people enormously underrepresented in terms of the resources and assets that are available. That is where the Dream Exchange comes in. Over 92% of the jobs created by companies are created after an IPO. The Dream Exchange will actually create access for companies below 50 million in value to have a way of working their way into the capital systems and toward an IPO. DX Capital Partners has acquired the controlling interest in the Dream Exchange, making it the first ever Black-owned stock exchange in the history of America. Dr. King's dream was for everyone. We want people to be clear that we are trying to help all small, mid-sized businesses that are seeking capital. We want to do it for everybody. My dad always talked about the fact that you can kill the dreamer, but you can't kill the dream. Dr. King is not with us, but we are committed to making sure that all people have access to the resources they need to be successful and to thrive. This is a unique opportunity to participate in the development of an organization that is committed to the dream of Dr. King of creating economic empowerment throughout our community and throughout this country. There has never been an opportunity that has come at this level.
So welcome, everyone, and welcome to the people who've been here before. We have a lot of people who kind of come to every webinar. I really appreciate your support and help and participation and feedback. And for those of you who are new, hopefully that gave you a little insight into what we're doing. We're actually creating a national market system stock exchange. We're in the process of the electronic construction. It's going extremely well. We're going to find out a little bit about that as we give an explanation for how stock exchanges make money today. It's been a consistent question for people who are, curious about what a stock exchange is and does. So, without further ado, let me just begin with once again just reiterating our purpose. The national market system is the system by law where all trading of public stock occurs. There are approximately 7 stock exchanges or families of stock exchanges. You know, the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ Stock Exchange are the two celebrity exchanges that everyone's familiar with. Never before has there been what I would call overwhelming or even adequate minority participation in the public capital market system. So what we've done, Dwayne and I, really in forming a partnership, is to bring to bear all of the purposes behind public capital market formation, capital formation, as well as the opportunity to participate in the game. There's a game of public capital market stock trading that we're hoping to open to a broader audience of people, increase access and increase opportunity, both in stock trading as well as providing a venue to open access to small companies to be able to list their companies publicly and to better serve the American investing public, especially the underrepresented communities in this industry. So, we've developed what I think is a wonderful brand and a wonderful team of people, and we're fulfilling that purpose. It's the guidepost upon which we aim all of the directions of everything we're developing. And I don't want to, it's going to be a technical briefing, so I don't want to undercut the reason why we're doing what we're doing. When you hear a bit more of the technical briefing of the mechanics of stock exchanges today. So I'm going to jump right in because there's a lot of material. And to understand what a stock exchange is doing, we created a bit of a diagram that will help you better understand how capital flows through the United States public capital markets. That's distinctly different from investing in a private company. The public capital markets are the place where any American who opens an account at a stock brokerage can buy any of the stocks that have been registered with the Securities Exchange Commission and listed on a stock exchange. So what you see at the top of this diagram is the American investing public. Now, the American investing public is quite large. The fact is that most of you are part of this system, even if through some vehicle that someone else is utilizing on your behalf. For example, if you're a member of a pension fund, or you have a 401k, or you have a mutual fund, or you have some aggregation of money with other people, well, those funds are in turn invested into the capital markets. Some of those funds, especially pension funds, are largely invested in government securities. So treasury bonds, treasury bills, municipal bonds and bills. So the government is offering the opportunity to help finance your state, local, and federal government. A large part of the money goes there. However, there is a substantial amount of funds from the American investing public that go into, as I outlined, your pension fund. So the California Personnel Fund, the New York Teachers Union Pension Fund, the Chicago Transit Authority Pension Fund. These pension funds accumulate billions of dollars, and the pension fund themselves does some money management. But on the other hand, what they end up doing is they hire what's often described as an allocator or a money management company. Now, the larger the fund, the more likely it is that they're going to hire one of the more pristine and qualified brokerages. They're really stockbrokers. You know them as household names: J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch. Those companies are specifically designed to do the service of deciding how to trade all of the funds that are aggregated on behalf of the public in various funds. So what they're doing is a money manager at the fund will choose a brokerage to help them manage those funds. That brokerage in turn turns around and actually makes the investments and controls the marketplace on behalf of the American investing public. So from the green box, what you see is a lighter blue box where the brokerages operate. Now, in addition to that, you'll see there's a side there that says retail investing. So not only can you invest your money as a citizen through a fund, through a 401k or an IRA where you choose a fund manager yourself, or through a pension fund where the pension fund chooses the person to manage the fund, you can do it directly. So that's called retail investing. So if you wanted to, you could go and open an account at JP Morgan's stock brokerage or Merrill Lynch or one of the other stock brokerages, Charles Schwab, E-Trade. There's all kinds of ways for you to make a direct choice, for you to prefer what investments you'd like to direct your money to. So if you open a stock brokerage account, you are the manager of your own money, and you can decide whether today you buy 100 shares of Apple Computer or you sell 1,000 shares of Tesla Motors. So there's two avenues. There in fact are more avenues, but for simplicity's sake and explaining how we get to what an exchange is doing and how it makes money, these are primary ways. This is an overwhelming amount of money that is being used in the capital markets to buy and sell stocks. So once those funds are being managed or are at the stock brokerage, what happens next? Well, those stock brokerages are known as stock exchange members. They belong to a stock exchange, and they're obligated to follow the rules of the stock exchange. Now, in addition, they have to follow a library full of some very good federal laws and often state laws. But primarily when they become a member of a stock exchange, they're agreeing to follow the rules under which that stock exchange operates. And they will buy and sell the stocks that their investors and their customers want them to buy, or that they've advised them to buy, using that stock exchange's customized rulebook. When they do that, it's called providing an order. So stock exchange members create orders to buy or to sell stock, and it flows. So in the industry, it's what's known as order flow. So the orders flow, for example, on the left side, you have an order flowing from a purchasing broker. That broker is saying, I'd like to buy 100 shares of Apple Computer or whatever security they've decided in their program is going to be purchased and at what price. Now, on the right side, you see the seller broker. At the same time, they may have a customer who decides equally, I'd like to sell 100 shares of Apple Computer at a particular price. So when those orders are flowing, they have to go to a centralized marketplace. They have to go to a marketplace with rules where we can govern the game of the buying and the selling of stock every day. So what you see at the bottom in that larger blue box called the Dream Exchange is some of the component parts. Now, there's an enormous amount of technology behind this, but what we're showing you is in very basic form what the flow of the order through the exchange will look like. So there'll be a display. That display should be something that the member in its trading session finds aesthetically easy to use, or a data connection, something that's easy for them to accomplish their mission of optimizing the buying and the selling on behalf of their customers. Once the order is received, however, it has to go through an electronic process where the order is analyzed, it's categorized, it's put into different bins, so that analytical process is done electronically at the stock exchange. It's aggregating the type of order and the types of information that are in the order electronically so they can easily be grouped. And then those groupings are integrated, and through a computer network, they appear in a centralized order book is what it's called. So all of the buy orders, all of the sell orders are listed side by side one another so that the stockbroker, the exchange member, can have the data to make determinations throughout the trading day as to what their next move will be in this game. So that consolidated order book is, through a very elaborate computer process, presented back to the American investing public. You can even see it when you watch television. So essentially, when you watch a TV show, across the bottom of the screen, you'll sometimes see what looks like a stock ticker tape. That's actually displaying the last trade that was completed in the order book. So while the order is in the order book, it's merely an order. But when it's matched, that at that moment, it becomes an executed trade. Now, within that, there's a very elaborate routing system, a computer routing system that helps to match the trades. So in that process of trade matching, there's a constant electronic updating because one trade is completed, another trade is completed, the information is updated, it's reported back to the brokers. And that process is a very elaborate electronic process. Now, in addition to this, however, as orders flow into and out of the Dream Exchange, since 2005, we've had something called the National Market System. There's a regulation called Regulation National Market System, or Regulation NMS. Within that, there's an environment where all stock exchanges agree to meet on the same playing field. And that system is called the National Best Bid, Best Offer. So if someone is bidding on a share of stock or offering to sell a share of stock, there's a national system where all stock exchanges meet. So you see that off to the left side where the Dream Exchange, with its electronic component parts, is referring the information into a national system so the optimal price to buy or sell, even if it isn't on the Dream Exchange, can be directed to another stock exchange where that order will be matched. So you see on the left side there, New York Stock Exchange is NYSE, the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. CBOE stands for Chicago Board of Options Exchange / BATS. BATS stands for Better Alternative Trading System. That is another one of the large stock exchanges in the United States. IEX stands for the Investors Exchange. It's a newer exchange. It's perhaps about 4 years old. And then the newest of the exchanges is called MEMEX, or the Members Exchange. There are some other very, very small stock exchanges that are customized for things perhaps other than this. However, that's the aggregation of the largest amount of order flow in the National Best Bid, Best Offer system. Is what you see in that little box on the left. So the Dream Exchange is in the process of becoming one of the exchanges that will be alongside of these others, and we'll have our own order book, our own router, our own participation in the National Best Bid, Best Offer system, and our customers or members will be able to direct the flow of money in the U.S. capital markets into our exchange to either be matched on exchange or to be routed to another exchange to get the most optimal price for the securities. So what you see here, what I just outlined, and it took me quite a while to describe it, this activity of execution or shares traded happens 3 trillion times per year. So every year, with little exception, it's actually a growing number of trades. Every year on stock exchanges, 3 trillion shares are bought and sold. So when I was alluding to the fact that this is a very sophisticated electronic system, the fact is that even for all stock exchange activity to be captured amongst all the participants is an enormous task technologically. So some of these trades are executed, and the time with which they're executed is measured in millions and billions of a second. So in the construction process, obviously, it's a very delicate process electronically. It requires a lot of code and software engineers to make sure that it's properly written and properly managed. And at the Dream Exchange, we have a state-of-the-art team. We have several people who are among the top people in the entire industry that are in our trading operations, trading establishment, and trading security area that have developed what is our stock exchange. In fact, very, very soon, I'll back up. We actually have completed the entire construction of the electronic exchange, and that whole activity is now sitting in the cloud. Within a couple of weeks or so, we'll actually be in the exact same data center as all of the other exchanges. So we'll no longer be in the cloud. It'll be the hardware that we intend to make available, which is in exactly the same room where all of the other stock exchanges exist. So we're coming along very nicely on that. But I want to make sure I don't lose the opportunity to really explain the financial mechanics, because stock exchanges, as you see, aren't actually trading any stock. And sometimes I get questions like, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Will the market go up or will the market go down? And it's actually not our job to concern ourselves with whether or not the investor or the money manager or the stockbroker has a particular strategy of any kind. Our job is to make sure they follow the rules. We're actually the governing body over the JP Morgans, Morgan Stanleys, Charles Schwab's when they participate in the capital market. And the magnitude of it is quite high. There are only 8, well, there are 7, will be the 8th stock exchange to be part of the governing body that is running how money flows through the U.S. capital markets. So the order of magnitude and the barriers and to just being granted the opportunity to become part of the system is I think it's an honor. I'm actually honored that it's going as well as it is, and the participants are working with us as well as they are. On the other hand, with the purposes of who we are as an exchange and our brand and the problems we intend to tackle, it provides us for the first time ever with a seat at the table, if you will, in operating this system, which, as I said, has an enormous volume of participants. So this is another slide that helps you perhaps understand a little bit better how the mechanics work as it pertains to what is called listed companies. So on the left side of the screen, what you see is the investing public. It's the same little, heads on the right side. So we have investing public on either sides of the stock exchange game. Though that investing public is providing their funds to an investment bank or stockbroker so they can buy and sell shares. So on the left side, what you see is, the transaction perhaps, which is a purchase of stock. And on the right side, perhaps it's the sale of the stock. And those investment banks are members of the exchange. They meet in the middle. They meet at the stock exchange, and shares and money transact through the rules of the stock exchange. Now, not every company in the United States has the privilege of buying and selling their shares on a stock exchange. So what you see underneath that is something called listed companies. Those companies that meet certain minimum standards for eligibility, both financially and in their the size of the company, the number of investors. Some of them are obligated because they have just too many investors interested in the company. So once you reach a plateau of large numbers of investors, you're obligated to list your shares on a stock exchange or to register the shares and apply for listing. And it's an important distinction I just said. Registering your shares, registering a company's shares with the government does not automatically entitle you to admission to a stock exchange marketplace. It's a separate process. So you can prepare all the paperwork and send it to the government and get approval to buy and sell shares. However, before the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ Stock Exchange will accept you into the stock exchange marketplace, giving you access to all of those stockbrokers and to the broad investing public that comes through them, you have to meet the exchange requirements to be listed. Now, the exchanges work with the investment banks. The investment banks, by and large, are the ones recruiting and developing the companies and eventually helping them get listed on a stock exchange. But the unique nature of the Dream Exchange is our intention is to work with the investment banks and to work with the community to see an increased participation of listed companies that have a broader audience in the Black community and in what we call the underrepresented communities. This even includes entrepreneurship. This includes a large number of unrepresented entrepreneurs or industry sectors that really deserve to have access by being a listed company to the broad investing American public that you see on the left and the right of this depiction. So it not only is flowing from funds, as you saw in the last graphic, but it is flowing from direct investor decision. It's the choice of the American people what to invest in and when, and whether they want to recuperate their investment by selling it, either for a profit or loss, or on their own determinism. This is the beauty of the American capital markets. They allow for the democratization of economics. They allow investors to choose what to invest in, what companies they choose to support with their investment, and whether they would like to recover their investment, sell their investment for any reason or no reason at all. So as we form our stock exchange, we aren't losing sight of something that has never existed in the history of our country. The United States has had stock exchanges in existence since 1792. And in that 230-year history, never before has there been the minority participation and minority ownership of a stock exchange to assist the unrepresented part of our country in participating in what is the greatest opportunity for wealth creation and for management of that wealth creation so that people can prosper. And as they invest and as they save money, they can actually become part of the fabric of how to grow wealthy and have a better life. So that is primarily, as it relates to these graphics, those investing public on the either side. I think we're going to be educating and opening up opportunity to significantly more people to participate, as well as one of our primary missions is to have listed companies expand in the marketplace that we're addressing. Now, the first step, however, is that we must become part of the national market system, and we're very far along towards making our first application with the Securities Exchange Commission, where granting a license to be the 8th stock exchange group in America is, it's not in the distant future. We're expecting that we'll be granted a license sometime later this year. The process is going swimmingly well. So this mechanics is something that when our brand and our purposes are put through the American capital markets, of an entirely different viewpoint of how this will occur will be brought to bear through our group. So now for the primary purpose, what everyone came for today, and it's actually, now that you understand the flow, order flow, as the industry likes to call it, this is the primary slide of today, which is a question we've repeatedly gotten. Well, how do you make money? How does the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ Stock Exchange make money? Well, when you look at this graphic, you'll see that this is a rough estimation of the market share of order flow of that 3 trillion shares every year among all exchanges. So the NASDAQ carries most of it. They're generally at 50, a little more, a little less, depending on the year. Excuse me. So you see there, they own the lion's share of transaction order flow. The New York Stock Exchange carries about 31%, give or take the year, of that traffic. the Chicago Board of Options Exchange somewhere in the neighborhood of 12, and then this brand new exchange. Now, the Members Exchange, or MEMEX, is going to be very significant to our discussion. They were formed a little more than 2 years ago, so they're a very new exchange. The New York Stock Exchange as a brand has been around for 200 years. So 2 years is a very, very small amount of time to have existed as a stock exchange. However, the technological standardization, pricing, all of the various things that the Members Exchange has brought to bear has attracted the largest money managers as their members in the country. So in a very rapid 2 years, they've become a major participant at 5.5% of the share of market. Now, there's three other exchanges: the Investors Exchange, it's actually the Long-Term Stock Exchange, and Miami Pearl Stock Exchange, that they comprise about 2 to 2.5% of the market share of exchange order flow. So how does a stock exchange make money? How do they charge? Well, what you see is the average approximation. And now, just so you know, I'm simplifying this in a way that I could take an hour on the first page, literally, of one stock exchange. There are over 1,000 different ways that a stock exchange charges for order flow. Each one of those 1,000 has 3,700 different permutations. So there are literally thousands of ways to differentiate the type of order, where the order came from, how it came. There's an enormous variation to how the exchange actually charges money to its members to perform the service of overseeing the capital market and making sure that trades match. But if you were to just do a very, very, very high level average, it's about 1,000th of a penny per share executed. So as we said before, it's about 3 trillion shares executed, which means that the total fees charged approximately amongst all exchanges in any given year is about $3 billion. So what you see there, and each one of these, NASDAQ is a public company. You can look at their financial statements, New York Stock Exchange as well. This is the primary way that the very large exchanges make money, and we will be among them doing exactly the same thing. So transaction order flow for a national market system exchange that is carrying the traffic and overseeing the behavior of the brokers is charged at this approximate rate, and with the increased volume, there's also increased revenue. Now, many, many times we've delivered webinars where we've talked about the fact that in the recent times, financial technology has created the opportunity for stock exchanges and investment banks to make money on volume order flow. Well, this is the exact slide everyone was looking for and asking questions about. Why is that the case? So in the past, this didn't exist. In the past, there was a trading floor. There were stockbrokers standing on the trading floor. That trading floor was owned by, for example, the New York Stock Exchange. And you saw a bunch of stockbrokers hollering at each other all day long. And as they would talk to each other, they would actually be doing the business of trading those securities. Now, you can imagine that's much slower than using a computer to do it. So the transactions 20, 30, 40, and 50 years ago were primarily based upon human interaction. They were significantly more based on investment strategy than electronic strategy, which is what's taken over the marketplace today. So you'll see that a very small company with many fewer shares than the larger companies and a much lower dollar amount is completely unattractive in this marketplace. Well, we're changing that. We're operating in a way so as to allow ourselves to operate this exchange. We're creating a yet one more in this line of exchanges that will be able to accept the traffic, comply with the law, and work with members on larger companies and accept order flow. That is something that is a order of magnitude accomplishment, because there haven't been very many of them ever started in the history of the country, and we're on the precipice of creating a new one. On the other hand, our philosophy is that capital formation, how a company raises money, how a company gets listed, how companies go from out in the various rural and urban areas of our country with good ideas and good operating bases, can appeal to the American investing public so that they can have access to this enormous pool of investor money called the American investing public. So while we are doing this, our concentration is slightly off of this. Now, there's other webinars that are going to come up in the series that'll talk about listings of stock exchanges and data. The other two ways that a stock exchange makes money is they list new companies. When they list a new company, they earn a fee. They also sell data. They get the data from the stock exchange and they sell it to stock brokerages. They actually, what I referred to earlier, when you're watching television and you see all across the bottom of the screen, all those different trades and the amount of shares and the prices, that's data coming from a stock exchange that the CNBC News Channel has purchased. That's where they're getting the information from, directly from a stock exchange who's providing the data on the daily markets. It also goes to all kinds of other venues, Yahoo Finance. They're all gathering the data to report to you, the investing public. So if you Google a stock and it comes up, well, it'll come up on some various website that has purchased data from a stock exchange. However, by and large, the current exchange making money structure today is overwhelmingly skewed to what you see on this slide. 80 to 85%, sometimes as much as 90%, and in some of the exchanges, 100% of the money that is made is generated from trading execution order flow. So this is the primary explanation today, but I'm obviously coloring in around it all of the reasons we would enter this market. And the primary reason is, once we have the license to operate in this marketplace, it gives us the opportunity to expand that license and offer other services like the listing of new companies to the American investing and corporate environment. So once we begin the process of operating the national market exchange, we are then able to expand our exchange into the true help, which is the entire future of what we're doing. So having said that, what are the real kind of components of the national market system, and why are we needed? So we are building a fully licensed national market system exchange on status quo, and because of the national system, stock exchanges can't really say that they offer better prices, because they have to offer it at the same national best price as everyone else. So we'll be no better, but we'll be no worse. We'll be the equivalent of the New York Stock Exchange when we open. However, what we will be doing is providing representation to our members and representation to a community that hasn't been represented in this industry, so as to have a voice in increasing the representation, diversity, opening doors for entrepreneurs, and making this marketplace a wider, broader area of participants. So the first of the problems is that there's a lack of diversity in capital markets. There's never been a minority-controlled company that has ever operated a stock exchange in the history of the country. And as a result, the minority community hasn't really been involved in the decision-making on capital market structure or the plans for how that will work. And we will be the voice of that community in these various, you see the three-letter acronyms in the first box. SIP stands for Securities Information Processor. It's a very significant governance over how securities information is disseminated. SRO stands for Self-Regulatory Organization. That means a stock exchange which makes its own rules. We are only regulated by the SEC. No one else regulates us. In fact, we're considered to be self-regulated. We publish our rules with the Securities Exchange Commission. We have to follow the law, but they can't dictate what rules we have and do not have. We create them ourselves. In addition, most exchanges are constantly publishing changes to the rules so as to make for a more fair and equitable marketplace. We can actually now participate as we go forward in rule changes and weigh in on other stock exchange rule changes and SEC rule changes. So the fact is that the voice of diversity in the stock exchange industry is being born in the group of people that we're now recruiting and building as our team. The other interesting consolidation of the sector, when we say sector, I mean the stock exchange sector. So in the last 10 years, the landscape has changed from eight distinct families to only 5. And it's a shrinking marketplace. As you can see, the NASDAQ has 50% of the market. And if you add up the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, they represent 90%. It's nearly what you would call monopoly power if they were to all decide to agree upon one particular way to operate. Now, it's competitive, and it is competitive to the extent that there's healthy competition among them. But adding more participants will only make it more competitive. So we intend to be a competitor. We intend to have our voice, and we intend to grow into the role of taking responsibility for the capital market system with the brand and the voice that we have. Now, without participation, a major problem is participants are at a disadvantage. So the major constituents don't really have what we're creating, and that's the market need for the Dream Exchange. So, we are an advocate for the American investing public interest, but also for a broader array of market participants than is currently available in the stock exchange industry. So with that problem that exists within the national market system, this is a way we address why we're needed. So first and foremost, we're increasing diversity in the capital markets. That unique opportunity to meet or exceed diversity initiatives so that now there's a stock exchange with which the large stock brokerages can do business. They can't even do business with a minority stock exchange because none exists. And by becoming a exchange that has state-of-the-art technology and really meeting or exceeding the expectations of the market, not only will we be getting business opportunities with our participants by virtue of minority participation, but we have excellence. In fact, kind of as a testament to this, that the members exchange is what I consider to be the state-of-the-art opportunity. I consider their technology team and the things they're doing there to be top flight. And I'm a bit long in the tooth with this. I was at the birthplace of how electronic stock trading began nearly 27 years ago. So I've watched the industry over the last quarter century become what it is today. And I'm a fair judge of that. And I think that what the members exchange is doing is extraordinary. We have recently, as 2.5 months ago, entered into the preliminary agreements with them to host certain portions of the electronic infrastructure of our exchange. So we're sharing our ideas with them and sharing our technology, and they're sharing theirs. So they're the fastest growing equity stock exchange in the world, because they're doing it right, and they're doing it in a state-of-the-art way with extreme, what I would call the gold standard of how to operate a stock exchange. And I think it's a testament to their group to work with us as a diverse company, but it's also a testament to our group in that we are a technologically superior, extraordinary team of people who really understands this market need and how to drive innovation into the stock exchange marketplace. I talked about this before, and I touched on it in the earlier slide. I don't think this can be understated enough. The voice in market structure. So when the United States Congress and the Securities Exchange Commission are looking for input, and they do look for input in a sincere way, because I've actually been on the fringe of the discussions where how should we do things better is being questioned by the regulators and the government. Well, there hasn't been a participant representing the viewpoint and the brand at which we're addressing this problem. So this leading role that we'll establish on behalf of an underrepresented community of people in America, diverse as well as entrepreneurship communities, we will be able to provide our input and be an influencer on the governance over the national market system. Now, you've seen me prevent, if you've been here before, that 3 trillion share tally of share execution, trade execution, order flow. Well, the dollar value attached to that last year was $142 trillion. So to be able to provide input, operate an exchange, and competently do the service of stock exchange technology, that's one thing. The other thing is that the influence is over trillions of dollars that are flowing through the investment community annually. So it's an important voice to have when you consider the market economies of the United States, that having a diverse representation and having the voice of the entrepreneurship community at the table to discuss what's needed in the future is something that makes our exchange very needed. Lastly, there's the channeling of the ability to create new markets through the stock exchange. So stock exchanges are highly profitable. The scale with which a stock exchange can operate today is enormous because of financial technology. So in the past, stock exchanges were a bit clunky and cumbersome. There was a lot of manual activity on the trading floor and the aftermath of the trading floor to capture all the information. Well, today, financial technology offers an extraordinary opportunity to assure that that's done speedily and without having to add thousands of employees to make sure that it's done correctly. Computerization has really filled the void for how to do it quickly and efficiently and scale the business. And the barriers to entry are quite high. It's not for the faint of heart. Very few people that I know would accept the daunting task of forming a stock exchange, not only because of the rules, but also because of the sophistication of the technology. We're a very unique group of people, the people who within our company, and I invite you to go to our website. There are videos of our team and listen to what they have to say, because not only do we have the top of the industry, both in technology and in rulemaking and in the ability to influence future rules and how things operate, but we also have our purpose foremost in our mind. So when you listen to those videos, you'll see that not only do we have very sophisticated software engineers, but they've joined the Dream Exchange for the purpose. They're here because we're changing capital markets, and they intend to add their expertise to the flow of creating us as the future of how society should be operating in a fair and equal and open marketplace. And our alignment, I can't emphasize this enough. The alignment with the Members Exchange is something I'm very proud of. I'm actually quite proud of the Members Exchange themselves. We've been working with them for quite some time, and they too are an extraordinary group of people. And it has been a kind of an equal alignment in seeing the needs of the market be developed within the unique brand of what the Dream Exchange will offer as a national market exchange. So with the combination of those things, we're very uniquely positioned in the market to grow and to provide service to those people who historically haven't had it, as well as the current market participants. So the overall plan, what you see on the far right of this kind of ramp of the marketplace, the National Market System Exchange, we'll actually establish that first. So the very first thing we're doing is demonstrating both our ability, competence, and market acceptance of what we're doing in the national market system exchange marketplace. In addition to doing that, however, we are creating a IPO listing platform, which we will probably roll out immediately after the national market system exchange. We're in the planning process for that now. That's for much larger companies. Those are companies that today would ordinarily go public on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. Well, we're taking a unique viewpoint because we want to reach more market participants, more diverse participants to come and list. Now, I have other slides and other webinars that show this as a separate problem. There have been only 2 Black-owned companies ever listed on the New York Stock Exchange in its history. So not 2%, 2 companies. Of the tens of thousands that have done that, we really have a tremendous need to bridge the gap from small to medium to large company in an underrepresented community and make sure that more companies and more prosperity occurs in those marketplaces. And that's first and foremost. However, we are also in the development of a venture exchange. Now, venture stock exchanges don't exist today by law. We've been the pioneer in developing what a venture exchange is. And those venture exchanges are tailored to that middle block you see in the ramp. There are a number of companies who need the time to develop in a public market so they can map and grow and graduate to a national market system exchange. So we are the pioneer in that. Right now, in fact, nowhere in the country does there exist the unique nature of the plan for a venture exchange as there does inside the Dream Exchange. This will open up tremendous opportunity to companies of all sizes from all sectors of our society to come and participate and actually with a direct market towards the diverse community to people who are just not even being talked to. Now, what does that do? Well, there's what I talked about order flow. Those are shares being traded after the company is already listed. So when a company lists, if you're familiar with the expression initial public offering or an IPO, that's the first time. Well, every time that stock is bought and sold after that, it's considered secondary. It's called secondary liquidity. How can you turn your shares into cash? Liquidity means the ability to turn an asset, something you own, a home, a car, a stock, into cash. Well, the stock market is perhaps one of the greatest ways to turn something you own into cash. You can do it on a daily basis at quoted price through stock exchanges at any moment. Well, for very small companies who aren't in the public markets, who don't have access to that public market, doing an initial offering where they can raise money is only slightly more important because they need the money to operate and to grow and to expand. It's slightly more important than the second question, which is, once you've raised the money to expand, now what? Well, the venture exchange market allows for secondary liquidity. It allows for a resale, and so that the stock price can increase as the company grows. So that secondary liquidity for smaller companies in a secure stock exchange environment where investors can be protected, but an early stage company can also come and be part of the capital market system is something we're pioneering. We're creating that for the first time ever. And what we view that as is the bridge. It's a bridge for the small company to get access to public capital markets and eventually graduate from the venture exchange to the national exchange to participate fully in what is a national capital market system. So you can see that the transition from national market exchange kind of going backwards to venture exchange simultaneously in that last little graphic, which says financial education. This is a broad spectrum of education. And we are purposed in doing this from all the way from elementary financial literacy that we're going to be working on in a almost a pro bono or a philanthropic way to bring children up to speed and get them information so that as they're growing, they realize that the wealth creation of participating in this is how wealth and prosperity and life security and safety in your life's work is created. But we're also working, for example, with the University of Wisconsin's Lubar College of Business. And now we're beginning the process of taking what we're doing there to export into other areas where college students who are getting master's degrees can actually learn about how to operate in this system and actually learn how to work and get jobs in the system, as well as participate themselves and advise others. So the educational process goes throughout the entire system, but it is fundamentally educating. In fact, what we're doing here today in a webinar, we have to inform the public in clear language without a lot of confusing terminology to assure that the market can actually use what we're creating. So we've invested an enormous amount into the plan to bring financial education at all levels, in fact, financial literacy and education at all levels, to increase the participation. Once we have the access, we want people to use it to better their lives. Now, the primary way that we've been working on the venture legislation, what I call the venture legislation, is what's known as the Main Street Growth Act. This is the law where venture securities and venture stock exchanges are being created. We are clearly among the probably top 2 opinion leaders on the content of that legislation. It is the way to create the auction stock exchange marketplace for early and mid-sized companies. There are 3 types of companies that can be registered as securities. One is known as what is the small reporting company. And you see there are certain benchmarks, which we've often gotten questions. Part of what we're doing today is we get questions. I want to answer them in full detail and show you. So, what will the listing standards be for the venture exchange? Well, the top tier will be small reporting companies. A public float, that means that the investing public, that means any general investing group, not the owners of the company from its inception, not the officers and CEO and employees, but people who have just invested and have no real attachment to the company is what's known as the public float. So any company that has $250 million of public investors or less, and that has less than 100 million in revenues and has no public float, which married with the public float of less than 700 million, that's the top tier. These are the companies that, when you look at the minimum market value to become part of the New York Stock Exchange is 250 million. So it goes from 250 million and up. Well, we're 250 million and down in the top tier. Now, emerging growth companies can be of varying sizes. They can actually be bigger than the small reporting companies or smaller. There are just features that make it easier to become public under the emerging growth company statute. Now, small reporting companies and emerging growth companies in the darker boxes, those actually exist today on national exchanges. It's just they're not being served very well. And they're also not attractive listings. Again, there's not a lot of order flow. So we're concentrating in the venture market on those 2, but our primary concentration is in something called the early stage growth company. These are companies that might be raising as little as $5 million. It's from $5 to $75 million that they would go and offer shares to the American investing public. And it's a much more scaled down, much more friendly process, especially with the customization of the rules of our venture exchange. Now, that blue box doesn't exist today in a stock market environment. It does exist to some greater degree under what's called Regulation A. That's an exempt way to offer private shares, quasi-private. You can sell them a little bit, but not in a stock exchange listed environment, not with the secondary liquidity of the entire public marketplace that we talked about in these earlier graphs. We're bringing that to the venture exchange marketplace, where the average investor can invest in an earlier way, build wealth, see a good company, as well as having more companies have access to capital, thrive, survive, grow, expand, and create the prosperity that we need in our nation. And a wonderful new expression that we're trademarking and copywriting. We are putting the all back in Wall Street. That last tier, that last blue box, really creates opportunity for everyone. And with the direction of our company, we are actually targeting the diverse communities, places where the large investing marketplace may not be going, may not be looking right now. And we're not only looking there, we're building bonds with strategic partnerships to cultivate all of those relationships to expand our exchange so that we open it to the broadest audience of really qualified, quality companies as possible. Now, whether the Main Street Growth Act passes in a month or 2 months or it passes next year will not inhibit our ability to operate. Within this year, I expect the national exchange license should be granted and we should start operating. There's some technology, what I would call targets that are both vital and some of them primary to accomplishing opening the exchange that are in our immediate future, but it's going along so extraordinary. I'm very proud of my team. So the fact is that once that's open and once we're available to operate a national exchange, the ease with which the existing technology of our exchange can then be easily modified for the venture exchange will save us considerable time once the legislation is in place and we can open this market to more companies. So, and I have entire briefings on some of these. Some of these are one slide where I have an entire webinar that I've delivered on it. Lastly, what I'd like to do is rekindle what is a little bit of our purpose and explain it in a short way, which I think is best captured in a video that my team has prepared, and really understand and close with the purpose, and then I'll take some of your questions. So I'm going to start our purpose video for you right now. The truth is that 120 years ago, you couldn't travel to the store without a horse and a buggy. You couldn't travel interstate without getting on a train. And since that time, though clearly no one would consider taking their horse to the grocery store, you get in a climate-controlled vehicle. We live in a technological society where we have wireless communication that never existed before. We've changed the way human beings live on Earth in such a profound way. And the reason that innovation came to be is because capital markets supported the most imaginative ideas. We gave our money to things that would expand our ability to survive by supporting others who had brilliant ideas and great imaginations. We've all been better off for it. And it is across all diverse marketplaces, across all people everywhere. And we're concentrating on developing markets in areas where the greatest ideas are in fact the money. And we want to get them access to the money they need to expand it. That's really what the Dream Exchange is all about at its core purpose. So thank you for coming. I think I made it slightly past the hour, and I have a whole slew of questions. Actually, what I have mostly is I really want to thank you for this before I answer some of these questions. Um, the cheerleading, I would say, my staff is summarizing this. It's flattering. We really are dedicating our lives. It's a vocation for the people that work with me and for me. This has not been an easy task, but it's worthy of my life's work and every single person who works with us. And I'm just so proud that it's recognized, and that's our pay. I will repeat these and give people the information so that within our team, when some days it's a bit of a thankless job, but knowing that we're doing this for the United States of America, we believe that the legislation we're working on helps our country. We believe that every business should have the opportunity to have its ideas grow. And we believe that the ideas of our nation should be judged in a free and open marketplace, and everyone should have the opportunity to build wealth and become part of a fabric of having a secure, safe, flourishing, and prospering life. So overwhelmingly, most of what people are saying is, this is tremendous. Thank you. I've got thank yous galore. The one question I did want to make sure that that everyone understands. So one of the questions was, are you part of SIPCs, the Securities Investor Protection Corporation? So as a stock exchange, our members are required to be part of the Securities Investor Protection Corporation, part of the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA. Those are regulators that actually police membership of stock brokerages. We actually are at a layer above that. So, just to capture the magnitude, we're a self-regulatory organization that reports only to the Securities Exchange Commission and directly to the federal government. So the privilege of having that license is, if one of our members isn't correctly following SIPC rules or FINRA rules, we have the power to step in and judge whether or not they need to be part of our division of enforcement and be policed by us, as well as the other kind of regulators and licensing bodies. But if they're going to be a member of our exchange, they have to follow our rules, which include those other very well-placed federal laws. So, right now what I see is that we're creating this education. We're creating a process by which other people can really understand that a stock exchange, which is overseeing the game of the stock market, is not itself the stock market. Those are all these participants, the investing public, the pension funds, the stock brokerages. It's where they come together to be supervised. It's the referee on the field, if you will. It's a very unique position to be in because it also gives us the power to increase the participation in the marketplaces that have been underrepresented. And, yet last year we did a series of webinars with my partner, Dwayne Kyles, where we brought in very accomplished, really some of the best Black business people in America to discuss this. We haven't done this year. And primarily right now we're channeling this information into Black History Month. And you should all know that the altitude of what we're doing is not gone unrecognized. In fact, the annual Black business associations are meeting at the White House next Wednesday. And there are 50 CEOs that have been invited to go to the White House and receive a briefing from the senior advisor to the President of the United States. And I'm one of the CEOs who's been invited to the table already. So we're actually taking what is the honor and privilege of being a representative of the Black community we're bringing that right into the highest levels of our federal government, of the regulators, and of the financial industry in a way that has never been done before. And in fact, it's already begun. And there are numerous administration, cabinet officials, and congressional leadership that we will be at next Wednesday, bringing our voice into this environment for, well, we've been doing it in Congress for 5 years, but we're now bringing it right to the White House as a participant in how should we empower the Black community in the capital markets in a way that's never been done before. So I just want to see, I got another set of questions here. Let me just make sure I don't let anybody go unanswered. Let me see if I get this question translated. I apologize for the break. Oh, is there a minimum amount of money that we need to make? The stock exchange? No, the answer is no. Unlike banks or stock brokerages, because we're not actually taking the investors' funds and doing something with it, but we are supervising the people who do that. We have kind of a freedom to operate without some type of, tier one capital at a bank or net capital at a brokerage. We don't have that. We are merely operating in a way that allows us to, function according to the exchange rules. And I just saw a question. Hang on, let me just see. Okay, so I may translate this question too, and there's one more question after that. Listing, is there a minimum amount of company a company may have to make to join the exchange? The answer to that is, at this time, with the national exchange to become a listing, there will be minimums. As we get the venture exchange marketplace established, the answer to that is really no. And the purpose behind no is it's not really in that market how much money the company's making or making as a profit. Tesla Motors wasn't profitable until July of last year. So why were they the largest auto manufacturer in the world? Well, they had the best idea. They have a way to sell a retail electronically powered vehicle at a price point that the consumer could afford. If you have that, you have an extraordinary idea. And so for many years, investors continued to invest. It became increasingly more and more and more valuable. And the fact is that the value of the company was tremendously high, even though they hadn't turned a profit. So what we're doing in that small marketplace is we're concentrating on the idea, the imagination, whether or not we can service those companies and expand those ideas at a basic level. So that's really, when we start publishing the rules for the venture exchange, there'll be tremendously more details about that. I'm just sifting through some more of these questions. Okay, this is a great question, actually. At one time in the past, someone said, "You're awfully fair-skinned." I am a native. Well, I'm a native of the United States, but my background, my national origin is I'm an Italian American. I'm not Black. The company is owned more than 50% by Black investors. The board of the company right now consists of, it'll only have 3 directors at the moment: myself, Dwayne Kyles, and our general counsel, who is Jim Young. Actually, you can see our board on the website. The composition of the future board, which is in the legal documents we're preparing now to give to the Securities Exchange Commission, will probably be in the neighborhood of 90% Black directors. We currently employ about 60% Black employees, including our senior management team. and we are more than 50% owned by Black investors. So the fact is that one of the conversations we're working on changing is allowing a company to be considered a Black participating company with its purposes and what we call participation. In other words, we don't just have a member of the board who's Black, and we don't just have a executive who's a Black person, or we don't just are trying to make the minimum where we have 3, 4, 6% of the company's employees who are Black. We are dedicated to the proposition that a substantial, if not an overwhelming majority of who we are will be from the Black community, as well as in partnership with the white community. I think that's the right thing to do. Dwayne Kiles and I have known each other for more than 20 years. I consider him to be my brother. So we're trying to set an example of having the community come together in a way where the meaningful nature of Black participation in corporate America and finance, so that everyone can participate. But we're setting an example as a Black company in a way that other companies should follow what we're doing. So yes, the composition of everything we're doing I invite you to go to our website. It's a very nice tour of who we are, what our purposes are, who some of our senior executives are, and the talent that they have and the industry altitude that they have. So this is a very unique opportunity with a very unique group of people from all national origins and ethnicities, but it is primarily been the driving force has been from and through the Black community. And so the voice, which is not forgotten, regardless of what employee or what walk of life they come from, that's why they've come to work here, to fulfill this purpose, to fulfill the promise, which I think is brilliantly encapsulated when you look at the purposes in our website. We truly do want to see a living embodiment of the words of Dr. King in everything we do. So we cross a barrier that may exist because I think perhaps sometimes in our society there's an expectation that we don't get along. But we're a living example of how we all do get along, how we work together, and how we create prosperity in a community that has not seen prosperity delivered to it for a very, very long time, if ever. So I'm just going to look down. There's many more. Thank you. I don't know that it was amazing, but I did my best. And I'm looking forward to the next one too. And actually, one of the things, please stay in communication. We will be delivering more webinars. If you go through our website and follow us on social media, that's one way to stay up to abreast. Get on our email list. And if you want to talk to us, if you have more detailed questions, our senior management team, including myself, we get on calls. I will be happy to talk to you, send us emails. We're a very transparent organization. We like to disseminate the information because I think this is a historical event in our country that is coming. And we invite you all to be a part of it. It's kind of the dream exchange for the people. So if we ignore the people, we're not living up to that purpose. So please communicate, deliver all the information that you have and questions you have, and we'll be happy to answer them. And we're happy to have suggestions. So again, thank you all very much for your Friday afternoon. I think they're posting in the offers ways to get in touch with us and our website and how to follow us. So thank you all again very, very much. I really do appreciate all of you staying for as long as you did. I went 20 minutes over today. And I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. And I hope you're prospering. And I truly hope that you've become part of this movement to really transform how capital markets work in our country, and to join us at the Dream Exchange to see everyone flourish and prosper. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great day. And we'll see you again in our next webinar very, very soon.